Hi, good evening to you. I am trying new software here for Logitech. Previously, when you recorded on YouTube, you could record indirectly, so wasn't able to do that this time. And I'm going to try this and see how it goes. My name is Mr. Ritzik, and I am the instructor for English 162 WA, WB, and WC. So it's a combined section, as I mentioned to you. It was actually today's the same day when I made it very early this morning. So I'm doing this about 6 o'clock in the evening. Sometimes when I do these videos in my office, people kind of comment that the background's a little bit messy, but it's not as bad as some offices. So hopefully, that won't distract you. But on a more serious note, I'm going to go over the books that you will need for this class. So this Writers Frequently Asked Questions, a Pocket Handbook, is actually a really good resource, and it's included if you buy the packet through the bookstore. And this also has like MLA, APA format. It has grammar, punctuation, um, lots of other good information. But it's one that you can always, take with you in a briefcase or in a handbag or whatever, and use. So I always like to have a handbook at home for my own uses and to look things up. Of course, you can go to that website, which is owl.english.purdue.edu. So that's the online writing lab for Purdue University. And in there, they have a whole section on business writing, like memos, letters, email, resumes, reports, and other types of documents. So that's a good place to refer to. I also wanted to mention this book to you. This is not a required book for this class, but if you had college writing, you would have used the Brief Penguin Handbook by Lester Fagley, and this is a really strong one to have around, and it's easy to follow. Some handbooks are too complicated, but if you still have this one, I would actually tell you to use it for this class. Of course, if you buy the book from the bookstore, you will get a book like this, and then it has like the holes on the side, so you can get a binder and then use it. We got a better deal on this book by doing it like a custom version, and so you save a bit of money. And this not handbook, this textbook, the Technical Communication: A Practical Approach by Peffer and Adkins. I use this through about 7 editions, so I've used it for many years, and obviously I like the book a great deal. Now, if you buy it like an online version, like at Amazon or Half.com, Barnes & Noble, you'll get one that looks like this. And as I said, I'm a big fan of this book. And as I did mention, I have I think in assignments, I have a YouTube video or an MP3 there talking about Chapter 1, 3, and 4. Chapter 1, Technical Communication in the Workplace. I would definitely read that one over at least 2 times. Chapter 2 on Process and Technical Communication is actually really helpful and beneficial. And it just shows, the different types of readers and purposes and so on. Chapter 3 is collaboration in writing. That's a fairly important chapter. And but the one that I always refer to the most throughout the course is Chapter 4 on organizing information. You'll notice in this book it uses what's called the top-down format, which is stating the main findings and conclusions briefly in the introduction and then repeating those in a redundant and repetitive manner throughout the document. You'll also notice this book uses what's called the ABC format, the abstract, the body, and the conclusion. And for this class, I sent you an example of an email that a student sent me with a consumer report. So he followed that format, but I like when somebody tells me what they are sending, and then they have some information in the body, and then they tell me when they want to reply by, because that helps. I mean, do you want it in a week? Do you want it the next day? Whatever it may be. But, obviously that's beneficial for me to know. As a reader, too, I like to know what you are sending, what you are attempting to do. As you go through the course, I'm going to tell you sometimes people have very, very long sentence level writing that they need to trim down. Or, at times you need to use transition words, or, use headings or use bullets or whatnot. But when you send me a document, you can say, well, I've tried to work on my transition words, or I've tried to tighten up my sentences. And so I will pay extra special attention to that, as I'm reading. So you'll see, like I said, with especially the first 4 chapters, they're very, very, illustrative as far as that goes. And I'm just looking for a pretty good example in here. If you have the book on page 182, I'm trying to get that into focus here. It's like a memo, but that uses the ABC format with the abstract, and then the body is a problem, the solution, and then the conclusion is the C. So, you will definitely notice that. And then even I was looking at this with the in-class course today. If you go to chapter 10, formatting, reports and proposals, there's a good example on page 330. It's called Shark Path Study. And then you can see, instead of calling it abstract, they use the term introductory summary. And then they have the headings, work at the project site, laboratory analysis. They have the subheadings, and then they have the conclusions or recommendations. Now, if you go to page 334, you will notice that that's a formal report, and they'll have a title page, and this would be a letter of transmittal on the next page, table of contents on 336 and 337, and then you can see the executive summary, which is a synopsis of the main findings and conclusions and results and that sort of thing, for the document. This week I told you to look at chapters 1 and chapter 6. I'd also like you to take a look at style in technical writing, because they go through, writing clear sentences, and there is nothing more important that you will do than writing clear, accurate sentences. Some years ago, my wife owned a Honda Accord. We've owned probably 4 or 5 of them since then. We're pretty fond of Hondas, but there was a problem that occurred, which was the thermostat stuck, the car overheated, antifreeze got into the engine block, so we had to get it repaired. Currently, we go to a certified Honda and Acura mechanic that has about 30 years of experience, and that's what he does all day, every day, so he has a high level of expertise. But at that time, he went to a man that worked on all sorts of vehicles, so he bought either one of those Chilton or Haynes repair manuals. And so when he fixed our vehicle, he fixed it, but there was still some issue because white smoke was still coming out of the tailpipe, and to go up a hill in that vehicle, it was almost impossible. So we had to end up trading it in. But that's an example of inaccurate or unclear sentence level writing. So go ahead and take a look at chapter 17, which starts on page 634. They talk about being concise, being accurate, which is really, really important. Next week in discussion board 1, we're going to practice using the active voice and also trimming down your writing. And then I also wanted to refer you, and I talked about this in class as well today, like plain English is a specific style recommended for U.S. government documents or for documents such as proposals or reports that are submitted to federal agencies. And simplified English on page 649 has many of the same recommendations and sometimes confused with plain English. It's a different purpose and is designed for a different audience. It's called Control English. It is designed for the global economy. So, when you write for people from other countries, you wouldn't say, Kennametal had a reduction in force, or right-sized or downsized. You can just say Kennametal simply laid off 250 employees today. And that's a fair way, to do it. It's much more clear, and it's much more informative for people from other countries. Um, there was a person here that used to use the term facilitated meeting, and all it was a meeting, a facilitated discussion, he would call it, and just use the simpler term meeting. We used to use this book for a time, the Prentice Hall Guide, Reference Guide for Professional Writing. And something like this is just a little bit more specific than this one that people had for college writing. But the little handbook that we have is fine. I just wanted to refer you to some of them. If you work for like a newspaper, you would use this one, the Associated Press style book. Or I've had students that work for, like I had a guy that worked for Caterpillar, and Caterpillar has their own style guide. They have a guide for equipment failure. So how do you document it? How do you articulate it? All those kinds of things, or an accident or something with their own employees while working at a job site and whatnot. That's really, really, important. And I was in the Navy for 4 years, and so we had to do accident and incident reports in a very, very specific way, and we use the U.S. Navy Correspondence Manual. But like the CIA has a CIA Correspondence Manual, NASA does, so they all do. They'll have guidelines for how you want to do things. Even when I was in the Navy, we would use the word onboard, or onboard is 2 words. So, the captain was on board the ship, so that means someone is boarding a naval vessel. So on board is 2 words that you are in agreement with something. So are you on board with this idea? Do you recommend this, or do you advocate it? So it's a different word, in the 2 different usages. If you ever work in an office, is how a handbook for office workers is one that some people, will use. So I just wanted to mention that. And last thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit today is with assignments 1 and 2 in the information sheet. With the information sheet, you can bullet it, you can put it in paragraph form, it doesn't matter. All I really need to get is your, contact information and that sort of thing, so which I keep. And then, the other point that I wanted to tell you, like with assignment 1, you'll write that as a Word document. Make sure to follow the suggestions that I have with how the documents are set up, with your information on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, you will use a header, and you will click on Insert, and then you can do a page number, and then you can type your last name and space, and you have it. Just while I'm here, so you get how to do that. So when you're in a Word document, you click on Insert, and then you click on Page Number. You select top of the page, and then you will select plain number 3, and it'll give you a page number. And then you'll simply type your last name, hit a space, and hit Escape, and you will have a header, for your document. So just wanted to mention that. So with assignment 1, you can send it to me as a Word document. Assignment 2 on writing effective email, you have to read those links, and then you have to say what you learned from reading them on format, content, paragraphs, and lists, and emphasis. So, you just need to give a kind of a synopsis. You can write it as an email, or the other thing that you can do is you can just send it as a Word document. Next week, the discussion board 1 and 1A, those are done through the tools, and then you go into the discussion board. I always encourage you to type those first in Word and save them, and then in that way, like if you run into a problem and then Blackboard eats it or loses it or whatever, you have a backup. And the other part about it, when you do those, you can edit and proofread and tweak it and so on. With discussion board 1, you are only allowed to have 20 words or less for each of the sentences. With discussion board 1A, you just have to do a posting by Wednesday the 27th, and then you have to respond another time to another student by the 29th. This is far longer than I ever thought it would be. Usually I'm about 10 minutes, but this one, like I said, I had a bit to cover. So Hopefully this will work okay. We'll give it a shot. Thanks.